Hey there, my name's Niandra, and in this VOD review I'll be looking over a bronze match from Jerry. As always, thank you for letting me do this, and I'll be marking moments where they could have pushed damage boost with a sticker on screen unless I have more to add. Okay, so starting off, Mercy's Lucio with a Pharah is a bit risky. The big thing is to just find a balance between pocketing her and main healing for the rest of the team who may not be positioning near Pharah. Anyway, Jerry's Lucio accidentally falls off, which mood, but does make things a bit awkward. Immediately going for the skybox like this is risky because while Jerry gets a good view of his own team, he doesn't really get one of the enemy. This early into the match, you don't have much information about what your opponent is playing, so it's not a bad thing to be cautious, especially with the other healer already out of the fight. In fact, as soon as I unpause this, you're gonna hit Ash shots whiz past. Personally, I would try to make more use of the roofs for cover until I was more aware of how the enemy team was playing. With this VOD review, I had two main notes. The first was, it's okay not to be permanently beaming Pharah, but at least keep her in view when you're helping the rest of the team, especially when the other support can't really do anything for her. Secondly, getting more comfortable with Mercy's max beam range and being able to visualize in game would go a really long way in knowing where you can position, which the training room can help with. So Jerry's team wins the fight and a couple of allies look to push up while D.Va is injured on point. Healing her perfectly fine, but from my own experience I know that Jerry is far enough back that he won't be able to beam those at the choke. So say Reaper takes damage and falls back, Jerry would then react with GA and have to wait till he flies in range to connect the beam, meaning there's a slight delay in healing. To avoid this, Jerry could consider trying to position in the middle of split teammates instead of more on one side. However, you would also need to account for areas that are exposed and try to use cover as well. Here, Jerry got his beam on Reinhardt and then used him as a Guardian Angel target. I understand wanting to get past this exposed area, but like with D.Va, I would be mindful of becoming too focused on one side of split teammates and probably cancel GA as soon as I got on point if used at all. There's a good few seconds where half of the team remains out of camera view, and if the other support was a main healer, I probably wouldn't have an issue with this, but Lucio really forces you to be on top of everything. Pharah's death here was kind of unfortunate, and I think partially down to Valkyrie's beam breakage, which sucks, but you can learn to play around. Sadly, the play was heal her, stabilize her, and then use Valk. Here, Jerry would just want to cancel GA early to avoid going past the shield. Jerry's Lucio uses sound barrier. Not a great idea, but the shields are generally a good opportunity to play aggressive, meaning damage boost would be fantastic here. Even the pistol would be solid, but healing a fully healthed Rein that's sitting behind a healthy shield is a bit wasteful. Jerry isn't generating ult charge apart from the ticks he gets passively by playing this way, meaning he would build Valkyrie slower than a Mercy that capitalizes on opportunities like this by being more active than passive. Jerry's going to go for a res that's great, but slightly more exposed than it needs to be. Remember that Resurrect has a range of 5 meters, so the point could have been used for good cover here. Healing Reaper is also fine, but keep in mind he's got life steal that's increased by damage boost, so flicking between the two beam states could have been solid. One of my most common pieces of advice for positioning with Mercy is to avoid playing right next to your team unless you really need those quick super jumps. One of the reasons is a lot of high impact ultimates punish teams that are tightly knit together. Earlier on, Jerry's Lucio used sound barrier, and when a defensive ult is wasted like that, it's really important to check the scoreboard and ask yourself who on the enemy team is likely to have a scary ult. A lot of Zaryas will flat out use grab once a wasted sound barrier wears off because they know it's free, but in this instance that didn't happen. So enemy Zarya hadn't used grab yet, it was a few minutes into the round and no sound barrier as backup. In response, Jerry would want to make a conscious effort to keep distance from his teammates until grab was used, and if comfortable, say over voice if others were playing close together, which Mercy is good at spawning since she can position behind everyone. Jerry is really close to Valkyrie, so I would try to push damage boost here, probably on Pharah, to try and get the last few chunks of ult charge from poke damage. Like, it would just be kinda nice to have Valkyrie ready before the team has properly engaged in a fight. Again here, Jerry gets his beam on an ally and then Guardian Angels to them afterwards, which then creates a bit of distance between Jerry and his Reinhardt. So I think the timing of this upcoming Valkyrie is really strong, but damage boost could have been pushed harder. Pushing little flicks of DB in between healing is a great starting point for building the confidence needed to stay on the blue beam while multiple allies are injured. As for the Resurrect, my main notes were just be careful if using GA prefers beam target, and try to twist yourself so you line up with allies during the animation so you can immediately fly away once no longer locked in place. The team looks to be losing the fight, which sucks, but isn't the end of the world here. Instead of GAing to the D.Va next to him, I think Jerry should have looked to get out of the fight and fall back instead. He probably wasn't going to stabilize D.Va with Mercy's healing against a full team of enemies, so there's not much point in trying and slowing down the death, especially after numerous allies have already died. As covered previously, Mercy can use Angelic Descent to get across here, which would have given Jerry a nice head start in falling back.
Let me get you patched up. This is not the end.
Rocket barrage incoming.
Oh, let's break it down.
When it's just one enemy left on the objective, you really want to hammer home the damage boost even if allies are slightly injured. You don't want to risk an enemy being able to get back and stall, so lowering the time to kill is so good. Hey, good stuff. Let's move on to round 2. So the round starts and Lucio splits off from the team almost immediately, which fine, we can work with it. This positioning is really good. My only note would be to try and use this wall more to peek back and forth. My reasoning for this is while the friendly Rhine shield is protecting against those ahead, Jerry is a bit exposed to this area that an enemy DPS might take advantage of. As mentioned earlier, Reaper does have lifesteal, meaning it can be worth damage boosting him and letting himself heal. I noticed that Jerry seems to be playing with GA prefers beam target enabled, and generally this round I think he could have taken more advantage of it. For example, with this D.Va here, Jerry turns around and then uses GA, while the setting does work without line of sight. A friendly D.Va got knocked into the air there, and I'd probably use it as an opportunity to position above the ground with Guardian Angel, especially if not comfortable with the super jump combo. Judging by how Reinhardt is shielding and D.Va is shooting, enemies are likely trying to push the point from here, so I would be careful about flying forward after getting beam on Reaper. Personally, I would try to stay at the back of the objective since it gives both safety and information since you can see enemies approaching. Like earlier, I think the timing on this Valkyrie is really good, but there is a lack of damage boost in the beginning. If you're watching allies from above like this, you can kind of gauge how much damage they're taking, which will help in situations where only one ally is injured but multiple are doing damage. Targeting Reaper through this box with GA prefers beam target and a crouch GA would allow Jerry to bounce on top of it, I think. If you are going to play with this setting on, I feel that learning crouch GA is borderline essential considering just how many prop bounce opportunities it opens up. I would stick to the edge of the objective and avoid flying to Rhine here because he's 1v1ing a Junkrat who you want to keep distance from. Like, it would suck to accidentally die to his total mayhem or something. Not running across the map to help Reaper was absolutely fine, but I probably would try to keep him in my camera view. If he's able to fall back, there's a good chance he would need healing as well, so you'd want to be prepared for that. This death to Riptire was kind of unfortunate. If we rewind, I feel the main killer was this Guardian Angel right here. I've noted a few times in this VOD where Jerry GAs to someone very close to him, and in that case, I really think it would be worth learning how to super jump so at least Jerry can go upwards instead of like just having a small burst of flight forwards. There's a very fine line with GA because you want to keep moving and the cooldown is so short, but it's also very noticeable if you don't have the ability ready when you need it. For me, I try to only GA to people I've already got my beam attached to if I have a reason for doing so. Jerry is going to try to res Reaper, which is risky for a few reasons. The first is because this wall denies a lot of information on the enemy, meaning we don't know what potential danger lies past it. Secondly, the rest of the team is left with just Lucio for healing while the main healer has to leave the fight for a good like 10 seconds. Tragically, Jerry gets booped off. At that point, you're kinda looking for a Hail Mary, so you might as well flick your camera view upwards to see if anyone comes to peek. I'm gonna start wrapping up here because the team is gonna win the fight while Jerry comes back from spawn. Overall, I think the main things to work on are positioning, like get a bit more comfortable playing away from allies and using corners would help. I also think pushing damage boost more when allies are full would go a long way, and as I mentioned earlier, pushing little flicks of blue beam can be a great starting point for that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Feel free to check out my Discord where we have some members that enjoy doing VOD reviews and we're always happy to answer questions. Hope everyone had a nice holiday and here's to a good new year.